right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I do have a quorum now, and just to let everybody know, for planning purposes, I'm going to try and get through this calendar as far as I can. I will not finish this calendar today. Most of the folks signed up here are for 211 and 555. Those will be the last two bills that I'm going to call up. I got 4 bills that I think are going to go relatively quick, and I'll go ahead and get those out of the way. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, I have another committee meeting. Whatever I don't get done today, I'm going to move over to that calendar, which already has 2 bills on it waiting for me then. So I'm sorry to inconvenience you if you came here and I can't get to the bill you're interested in, but we're going to do the best we can to get through as many bills as we can for the next 2 days. If I don't get them done by tomorrow, getting them through crossover is going to be very, very difficult. So that's what we're going to have. I'm going to call on my vice chair to get us started.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for your blessings on the state of Georgia. Thank you for all these people who've cared enough about the future of Georgia to come testify and keep an eye on these bills. Pray for your wisdom in these proceedings and for energy and insight to get us between now and the end of crossover day. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you. All right, first bill is House Bill 671. All right. Which, so both of y'all on this? Okay. I'll light up both mics. This is LC 520793, is that correct?
We actually have an amended budget. I didn't get the 1s and 2s before I came over, but I did provide a copy.
All right. Is it in the folders? It's passed out. Okay. House Bill 671, LC 620160S. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
So,
All right. Tell us about your bill.
okay, thank you, Chairman. Last session, Representative Tim Fleming worked with Floor Leader McDonald and presented this bill to this committee. It passed committee, but time ran out before it made it to the floor in the second session of last biennial. So what this bill does is it protects children from explicit or lewd performances at venues across our state. It provides that to attend these performances, you must be of or over the age of 18. Minors also cannot be admitted even if accompanied by a parent or guardian. And so the bill outlines fines for holders of venues that violate these requirements. The amendment was actually in line 41. IRS came to me today, a couple of their representatives, to say they do not produce the licenses they could not find according to line 41, and so we sub that to Department of Health. And then the second is the Department of Revenue may suspend their alcohol license for the violations if minors are present at this event. Again, this bill is not to restrict venue performances. Its intent is strictly to protect and restrict attendance of minors from events containing sexually explicit performances as outlined in 16-12-100.
All right. Representative McDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I brother-in-lawed this bill last year. Now I'm gonna sister-in-law it. Last year it was debated near near crossover the night before, and we went through this. This was something going on in our community of Forsyth County, and in drawing up this bill, we looked at the performance side and the kid protection side, and we did not want, in drawing up this, we did not want to hurt any of these performers. This bill is not directed at them. This is more of a child protection, because in our county they were putting kids, inviting kids of all ages to these events, renting our county buildings. We didn't have a policy to stop that, and also doing it private business, which we didn't want to infringe on the performances going there, but we did not feel that it was right to encourage children to come to these. So I just appreciate the committee last year and its debate and its unanimous vote out of this committee.
All right. Any questions by the committee? Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the representatives. I do recall us doing a bill similar to this last year, and we made some amendments related to trying to make sure that we weren't putting within the bill that we were debating at least last year, dancing at a wedding or something. Because I think we talked specifically about what is sexually explicit that could be harmful to minors versus what is someone twerking at a wedding. I think specifically we talked about that. And are those amendments, I mean, we just got in the substitute, so I'm having trouble digesting. Could you tell me if those concerns were addressed in this?
Yes, I watched the video because this is my first session in. I watched the video, and as I understood it, the as defined in code, sexually explicit refers to the touching or exposure of genitalia.
Okay,
And so that was included in that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Bill passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Committee.
Next up is House Bill 618. Joe, come on up.
You go ahead.
You know, in a couple of years, we won't have this committee room anymore, so. I know. It is. All right, let's see, let me grab it up. Okay, here we go. All right, this is LC 520793, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm presenting, HB 618 and 520793. This bill is about requiring any seller of real property to make certain disclosures regarding to flood damage. In Georgia, renters already have the right to flood disclosure. Georgia law requires landlords to reveal a property's flooding history. Georgia homebuyers deserve the same right. HB 618 would amend Georgia law to require disclosure of flood history. However, Georgia homebuyers are currently kept in the dark about a home's flood history. The result, people are buying and moving into homes only to find out later about the flooding problems that they also purchased. Buying a home is one of the biggest financial investments a family will ever make. Providing a right to know a property's flood risk could help that property's owner from finding themselves underwater. I urge this committee to put buying a home on par with renting one when it comes to learning of property's flood risk by passing this bill. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Ann Brody. Ms. Brody is the State Government Relations Director at the American Flood Coalition. The American Flood Coalition is a bipartisan coalition that works at all levels of government to advance solutions that help keep communities safe from flooding. They have worked on flood disclosure in North Carolina, New York, and Florida. And be open for any questions, and she's the expert on this. So, anyway, any questions or what?
All right. Do you have a statement you want to make?
Happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a simple bill. I know you all hear this a lot, but this one really is. It is a no-cost policy that is in keeping with legislation that's already been enacted in most states across the country, including the states that Representative Campbell mentioned, but also our neighbors like South Carolina and Mississippi and North Carolina as well. And this state gives home buyers and potential home buyers the same protections that renters already have. For sellers, this is as easy as checking boxes and attaching a couple of forms, but it provides buyers with really crucial information so that they can make informed decisions. Because we know that purchasing a home is the most important financial decision that most people will make. And by including flood disclosure in state laws, it also will encourage a higher percentage of residents to have flood insurance, which is going to bring the overall cost of flood insurance down across the state. We know that that can be exorbitantly expensive. It's also going to bring down the cost of flood insurance through the National Insurance Program. And so this really supports Georgia home buyers, and we ask that you pass this bill.
Okay, all right. Any questions by the committee?
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say aye. All right. Bill
Okay.
passes.
Thank
Let's see. All right, Representative Clifton, you got House Bill 676. Let's see if I can dig it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be short and sweet. This bill only changes about 4 lines, 5 if you count the code section itself. Currently, the code is very specific on what is required in order for somebody to file a lien on a property. This bill essentially just puts a penalty if an individual or entity decides to file a lien on the property without the rights, essentially preventing people from bullying individuals into certain situations. I would be more than happy to elaborate, but again, wanted to be short and sweet for everyone's time.
Is this mostly materials liens for contractors and stuff?
Yes, sir. So this is protecting commercial owners, homeowners, and contractors and builders.
Okay. Any other questions by the committee? Vice Chair Reeves?
I think, I don't want to slow us down, but I did want to say this reminds me of the Liz Pendens reform that we did a year or two ago. And I don't want to slow it down, but take a look at what we did on Liz Pendens. That might be something to add in as it goes along.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Second.
All right. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right. Bill passes.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right. Representative Silcox, you have a bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it okay if I present from here?
Yes. Yes.
I want to present House Bill 664. It's LC 620120. This bill was brought to me by the Hunt Cliff Homeowners Association. This association was established by Tom Cousins in 1966, and so they do not have any provisions to amend their covenants for the subdivision, and this bill would require 80% of all the homeowners in the subdivision to vote in favor of amending it to amend them, but it does give all these older subdivisions an opportunity to amend. So I would ask your favorable consideration.
What's the current law on that?
The current it's silent as far as I can tell.
Oh.
This just hasn't come up.
All right.
Because most covenants and restrictions today allow for amendment. They have that within the original covenants.
Oh, okay. All right. But I was thinking the vote was still at 80% in the current law. I'm not sure about that. All right.
I'm not sure about that either.
Representative Oliver?
Well, I think we're asking the same question. In the modern world, is 80% the number that's used? Because that sounds high.
I believe so. But
And who sets that 80% standard?
We do.
Yes.
Not the guy that drafts the HOA agreement. I mean, it's to the advantage of the HOA management team to have 80%. Yes or no? High
It may or may not be, depending on the amendment, but I do think it's important if it's going to be a covenant or restriction on everybody in the subdivision that they have a high percentage vote in favor of it.
I just don't have any experience with 80%. That sounds high.
All right. Representative Reeves?
From some recollection from some Gwinnett County cases, up until some point in the 1980s, It was, or the court said the covenants automatically expire after 20 years. There was a court decision, and there was some law after that, and it set renewal provisions, and it's pretty high. So 80%, I think, is something that's achievable, but that way you don't have to go get 100% of the people signed,
Right.
because sometimes that's just not possible to go track everybody down.
And that may be what the current law is at 100%. So, Representative Oliver, you have,
No, sir, I'm just confused.
okay. All right. What we got? Oh, we have a speaker on this. Let's see. Ann McKillop? Right. Oh, there you go. If you can make your way. All right.
I just really have one comment. First, let me introduce myself, Ann McKillips, and I do live in a high-rise community in Buckhead. I am on our board. I am treasurer of the Buckhead Condo Alliance. I am a task force director for the Midtown Quality of Life, which is over 50 condo communities. So I'm pretty familiar with the condo laws. 80% is too high. Our documents are 2/3. And I think in talking to other condo owners that it's not 80, it's closer to 70.
Okay.
So you were right on that, but yeah. But that's the only comment I have. But it should be a high number.
So this will bring you in under this as well, the condos? Okay.
It won't, Deborah? Representative Silcox? Because we're about to rewrite our bylaws, which have never been rewritten.
Yeah, I was thinking this applied just to real estate.
But what do your covenants allow for amendment right now?
Very difficult.
But it does allow for
It
amendment.
does allow for them.
This is for those who haven't had an
okay.
amendment.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Okay.
That's all
Any
I
questions for the witness here? Thank you, ma'am. Oh, and I apologize to Jeff Ledford for forgetting him in House Bill 618. So
That's fine. You did.
I did well? Okay.
Did well. Did well.
Thank you. All right, any questions, any more questions from the committee? What's the will of the committee?
Move to pass. Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one opposed? Okay. It passes. All right. Now, let's see what I got here. I don't know about that. Let's see.
You got 2 left.
I only have 2 against it. All right, so House Bill 555. All right, Representative McCollum, we've got LC 550578S in our folder. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
All right. We've had some testimony before in front of the committee, and can you just kind of go over what maybe the changes are in this bill?
Well, sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members, for hearing this bill. I'll put my glasses on. Sorry, I can't see anymore.
Yes, sir. Understand that.
I have made changes, and reflected it from the last meeting, and received the feedback, and I made several changes. First, with help of legislative council, we've removed the apartment complex language from the bill, so now it's only specifically single-family housing. This was done by striking the definitions of multifamily residence and renumbering accordingly on the sub. Residential property, which is meant single-family residence or a multifamily residence, was also taken out and replaced with single-family residents throughout. Secondly, I have also extended the time of these outside investors will be able to sell these single-family homes, whether publicly or privately, from 2026 to 2029. Basically, none of these claims are possible until 2029, as I will explain in more detail. So that's the changes in the sub. First, let's talk about the problem. Right now, there's a growing concentration of ownership of single-family real property by outside investor groups. Recently, a GSU professor discovered 3 companies owning more than 19,000 metro Atlanta homes. That's $5.7 billion at 300,000, just a rough number. According to the estimate from a National Association of Realtors, 29% of the existing home transactions were all cash in December of 2023, up from 2027 in November, and 28% in December of 2022. Conventional loans financed 73.4% of the new home sales, up 0.3% over the quarter, but down 2.2 points since quarter 4 of 2022. Cash purchases rose to a decade high in January of 2024. 32% of all homes purchased were cash. This is creating conditions where individual consumer buyers, our constituents, are competing against out-of-state Goliaths who are able to outbid with a cash offer and cash in hand. This results in a disparate impact and barriers to entry, especially into the starter home categories, for the first-time home buyers especially. Because outside investors are removing the stepping stones to intergenerational wealth, they are also creating an artificial scarcity in supply, resulting in inflation, real estate, and now rental prices. As I talked before, they are the only way the middle class has ever been able to build wealth is to be able to purchase a house and pass it on their kids and send them to school and things like that. So that's being removed from America. These outside investors are creating market conditions favorable only to their very cash flush funds. They are socializing the cost onto hardworking Georgians and capitalizing the profits to themselves. So this bill provides the following solutions to help return the American dream of owning a home to Georgians from these out-of-state landlords. Of course, we want to be the #1 place to do business, but we also want to be the #1 place to raise a family, and that is more possible when you can own your own home, build equity, and pass along these houses to your kids and grandkids. Generational wealth. We don't want Georgia to be a place where you own nothing and forced to rent forever. Now I'll explain in detail the bill. The structure of the bill is to create a private cause of action to avoid government involvement. Since we are dealing in a lot of ways with out-of-state entities, why do we need to avoid government regulation? The U.S. Supreme Court has held that the Commerce Clause in the U.S. Constitution has a dormant Commerce Clause, which basically limits a state's ability to regulate interstate commerce. This bill avoids state action by empowering Georgians. So this is not a ban by government. Rather, we are providing a private action against entities that engage in this behavior to enforce by Georgians. So the bill provides actual as well as statutory damages in the amount of $15,000 against a business that owns more than 2,000 single-family homes per violation, which will be per house. Lines 47 to 50 lay out the cause of action. Lines 65 to 70 provide the damages, which I just obviously described. We would likely be on the cutting edge of impairing citizens to be able to buy a home, which makes sense because how uniquely destructive this issue is for our Georgia homeowners. Essentially, every state is running this, and they're all trying to figure out ways to correct it. While institutional investors own roughly 2% of single-family rental housing stock across the U.S., they own much greater shares of homes in certain markets, particularly in the Southeast and greatly in Georgia. The U.S. Government Accountability Office estimates that institutional investors own 25% of Atlanta, Georgia single-family rental housing market. 21% of Jacksonville, Florida, 15% of Tampa, Florida, and 18% of Charlotte, North Carolina. 15% single-family housing. Sorry, I already said Tampa, so I said Tampa twice. But Georgia is the #1 on the hit list in the United States for some reason. They're buying more houses in Georgia than anywhere else. High turnover rates among renters can create an instability in a neighborhood, whereas homeowners are more likely to stay in their homes for a longer period of time, contributing to a more stable community. The people that own the houses, they obviously have skin in the game within our communities and participate more. In a neighborhood community, a higher percentage of rental properties compared to owner-occupied homes can often lead to a potential decline in property values, decrease in neighborhood maintenance, less community involvement, as renters may have a less incentive to invest in the upkeeping of their homes compared to homeowners who have a direct financial stake in their property. The private right to action, lines 52 through 55, only kicks in when a business owns more than 2,000 houses. This is important for two reasons. First, the Urban Institute, as well as the U.S. Government Accountability Office, delineates institutional owners of single-family homes in 3 categories: mega investors, which own more than 1,000 properties; smaller investors, which own more than 25 but fewer than 1,000 properties; and then local investors, which own at least 25 properties with more than 75% of their properties in one metropolitan statistical area. So here, any human being can theoretically own all the homes. We aren't banning Elon Musk, so everybody can own the homes. We are also not banning hedge funds that form a corporation capture. But all we are saying, if you are a hedge fund and other business entity doing this, then you could be sued for having more than 2,000 single-family homes in Georgia. Second, the bill is pretty lenient. It allows these out-of-state behemoths to own 2,000 houses and not be subject to a cause of action. To date, my research shows that across the U.S., no single investor owned more than 1,000 single-family homes prior to 2011. Think about that. Nobody before 2011 owned more than 1,000 homes. However, by 2015, institutional investors own between 170 and 300,000 homes. By 2022, 32 institutional investors collectively owned 450,000 single-family homes. And according to the Government Accountability Office, the 5 largest investors own nearly 300,000 homes. The Government Accountability Office reported that 25% of the single-family market in Atlanta, 71,832 homes, was held by corporate investors in 2022. 7 national corporation landlords own 51,252 homes in the 21-county region, according to a new analysis performed by Parsa Labs for the Atlanta Regional Commission, the Regional Planning and Intergovernment Coordination Agency. Each of these corporations' primarily business model is leasing single-family homes, some of which may later be sold to tenants, the report stated. Innovation Homes, Praetorium Homes Partners, Amherst Holdings effectively themselves as a protection from legal liability or tenant accountability, using an extensive network of more than 190 corporation aliases registered to 74 different addresses across 10 states and 1 territory. According to the findings from GSU Professor Taylor Shelton and Rutgers Professor Eric Seymour, published in the Annals of American Association of Geographers. This means the other benefit of these being a private right of action is that the claim not only makes them accountable, but also subjects them to discovery, which they continually, the discovery piece is very critical because they can continually say they're not doing this, and also they will not release the information of how many homes they have in states and in Georgia. So that would obviously make them show their cards, essentially. When taken together with the definitions of affiliate and business enterprises, we can effectively close this shell game scheme, making this ventures a perilous prospect for groups that own more than 2,000 single-family homes. Since at lines 97 through 98, we also allow Georgia to proceed with a class action. Lastly, finally, I know y'all are probably happy, the bill does provide a safe harbor at lines 81 through 93. If a business enterprise no longer owns the single-family home in violation of the act in the 30 days of the initiation of the private cause of action, then that hedge fund, etc., is not subject to a private cause of action. This will encourage getting these single-family homes back in the possession of Georgia families, not out of state corporate landlords. The bill helps hardworking Georgians compete to become homeowners and not perpetual renters in a lopsided market by giving them a cause of action. It's time to send a message to Wall Street, dark money, and other citizens that we are not for sale solely for the purpose of profit. Georgia's single-family residence is for hard-working Georgians. We want to ensure the American dream for the middle class. The American dream of being able to buy a house, own a house, pass it on to your kids, and not be this faceless, nameless, big, huge corporations that are just continually buying up our homes and pushing up the values of our homes. To that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
All right, you got 2 or 3 here. Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the bill author, my good friend from over in the northeastern part of the sector of this great state. One question, line 65. Any claimant, my question wasn't just, we've got the best attorneys in the legislature on this committee, so I welcome this question being answered by any of my friends too. Any claimant, is that too broad of a standing being granted with that language? That was the only concern, and the reason I bring that concern up is just challenges that may come up down the road.
Well, I appreciate your question. I'd be open to suggestions, but I think that if I'm not mistaken, that I don't think a trial lawyer would take on a case if he doesn't see the need that obviously 2,000 houses is substantial. So I think it would be a stretch for a trial lawyer to take a case. Would you not feel that way?
In a perfect world, yes. Have there been lawyers that filed cases such as that in other areas of law? Yes. They have filed claims on behalf of folks that were determined not to have standing. Now, that's not to say that the lawyers probably thought in their mind to read the law, interpreted the law to give their client standing. I mean, that's how sometimes you establish standing and
right.
Do the reverse. But that was just a question I had in my mind. I mean, it's not determinative of my vote.
Well, there again, I would be open to a suggestion that you would, the committee would, want to strike that language and use a more broad, more specific language. But thank you for the question.
Yeah, I think it may just be as simple as putting in the word any affected.
Personally included.
Yeah. You saw the definition on page 2 of the bill, right?
Yep.
It's pretty broad. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Don't know that it helps, but it's there. All right. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask the sponsor series of questions, and I'll be quick. Right now, we're at an all-time record of home values, and the other day when we had the bill, it was 2027, I believe. You've given another 2 years for these large-scale, high-volume companies to sell the property off at a time when values are at a record high, right?
That's correct. I just, after talking and get some input from people, I didn't want to flood the market with the houses. So I think that, if the sell-off is 4 years, that wouldn't, be devastating per se if they did start selling their houses.
And on the flip side, one benefit that your bill does is protect against what happened during the Great Recession, when you had a number of companies that all of a sudden owned too much real estate. When the market went down, they failed and they were coming to the government to bail them out. Your bill protects against stuff like that, right?
That's correct. It's not too big to fail, and I feel like that a lot of these companies, if they did fail, that would be the case again. We're letting them grow so large that if they defaulted on 300,000 or even 70,000 houses, the government would have to step in there again and take these houses and do something with them. So. Yes.
And then the wording that Chairman Smith asked about, personally affected or personally aggrieved, is that some kind of amendment is that a friendly amendment if we heighten the standing?
Yes, I would definitely be amenable to that. I mean, obviously, it's a private attorney general provision, so that would be the whole crux of the bill, but I would be open to a friendly amendment.
And
yes.
then you and I and our 20-something colleagues in Gwinnett County worked on tax relief in Gwinnett County. We had about 125,000 homeowners in Gwinnett, and statewide when we worked on that, it was over 1 million. You're saying there are now about 400,000 units owned by these companies?
Yes, in Gwinnett County, obviously, we've had a lot of research on this because we've had several bills this session over this, and Gwinnett County's been hit very hard. And I tell you what, it has done also. These companies, with the amount of money they have and all cash offers, they're paying over what the house is worth, say $50,000 or $70,000. So that affects our constituents, because once they overpay in an area, the tax assessor has no choice but to use that comp, and it's making all of our constituents. That's why we're wrestling with taxes increasing.
And final question, in addition to the bill we voted for today that Representative Oliver sponsored, in addition to you and I contacting the federal authorities this week to invite them to investigate antitrust laws applicability on this, is your bill a step in the right direction that you would continue to get good input on how to perfect it between now and sine die?
It definitely would be. I mean, I think we just can't sit around and do nothing. Obviously, like we talked about, reaching out to the feds and the federal government and doing the antitrust. But that's something that's going to take years, and we just can't sit and continue to do nothing. So I had one representative as I was walking over here. I think it's a step in the right direction, and she had said that we, there again, we just can't do nothing. Thank you for your question.
All right. Representative Momtahan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to my friend, the author of this bill. Representative McConnell, we've had several questions and conversations about not only your bill, but several bills that have been floating around this General Assembly and the House of Representatives. I think we passed out a pretty good measure today, House Bill 399 from Miss Mayor Margaret Oliver, Representative Oliver. In those conversations, can you verify that what we've heard in this testimony, that in some cases these hedge funds, these institutional investors, are not even renting these properties? They're just...
That's correct. A lot of these investors are just buying them for a tax write-off, and they got really good, IRS benefits for just buying the house, parking their money, and just writing them off. And so, unfortunately, the house just sits empty. There again, they park the money there, and then it just goes down. Obviously the house looks terrible, and it just sits empty and goes to decay in our neighborhoods.
Well, thank you further, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Were you aware of the statistic that has come out that in Paulding County, Georgia, which were a county in the metro Atlanta area, that 83% of the single-family residential rental market is investor-owned?
I wasn't aware of that, but it doesn't surprise me. Like I said, Georgia is one of their biggest, without lack of better words, on their hit list for doing rental property here, and then on top of that, they're obviously doing 100% rental communities, and I'm curious of what those are going to look like in 10 or 15 years as well. So
that's right, and I'm sorry, I should have said institutional investor owned. That is the 21 largest hedge funds, residential hedge funds in the United States. Thank you for your bill, and Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, we've still got some questions going here. Representative Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm for your bill.
Thank you.
We have to do something. and I missed the first hearing, so forgive me if this was discussed previously. On line 70, you talk about a statutory damages in the amount of $15,000, but when we move over to paragraph 2 on line 24, it looks like an additional penalty is that the Superior Court can order the house to be sold. And I'm thinking if that's another kind of penalty that would exceed $15,000 for a whole lot of houses. So I'm trying to figure out if that was intentional to increase the penalty or not, or am I misreading it?
Well, I think that, and I'm there again, I would be open to your suggestions. I'm obviously not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV. So I think that the gist is that if the houses aren't, sold, they would be sold on the courthouse steps. If they are houses that just delinquent, but I would be open to some negotiation as far as those whatever you think would be amendment.
It seems to me that the $15,000 penalty is inconsistent with selling the house and taking all the proceeds away from the owner. Is that your intent?
No, my intent is for them to sell down to the 2,000 house mark in 4 years. That's my intent. So I feel like that would be what happens. But if they try to hedge their bets and say nobody's going to figure out that I own 12,000 houses, we need to make sure that the punishment, if that's the case, and they bring a suit, is something that they think about, before they let that happen. I think, like I said, I think that after 4 years they should know whatever penalty's coming, they deserve it. Do you not think so?
I'm for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm supportive of what you're trying to do too. I do have some concerns in terms of the constitutionality of forcing people to sell property that they own, both from a property rights standpoint and as well from a contractual standpoint. Have you looked into that at all?
Well, and bringing this bill, I've thought about that. Obviously, I deal in real estate, and I very 100% with private property rights, and then also very much a capitalist. The problem is with these companies being the capitalists, you can't deal with them. They've got their thumb on the scale with how much money they have. I mean, as far as that goes. But I think we went through. I've started this bill for a year ago, and me and Ledge Council has went through this bill, and we've tried to say, okay, what if we do this or what if we do that? This is the most constitutional thing that we've came up with. It being a private right of action, I think helps. And then I think that this is a good bill, and I think it'll hold up.
Thank you. I have a few more questions, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
Is there any distinction on line 74 between obtains, owns, or possesses? We use those three different words, and they're repeated in the bill. I'm just curious if there's owns is very clear, but is there any particular meaning you're trying to express with obtains or possesses?
Well, the possesses an interest in. So we didn't want to do what they're doing now is to make a shell game for them, and essentially what they do is just set up 50 LLCs and say we're going to put 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. So the extent of that is so we can capture that, make sure they don't continually do that with LLCs, and so you can own or possess interest in any of the houses.
Okay, that's helpful. And then my other questions are on the affirmative defenses, which are on page 5. Ignorance or mistake of law is well known, but some of the others look fairly novel. Can you walk us through those beginning on line 97, like, for example, reliance on any court decision that has been overruled, even if such court decision had not been overruled at the time the business enterprise violated it? Can you provide a little explanation around that?
No.
Okay.
I can't, to be honest. I could maybe get you some clarification on that. Or if we've got a good attorney in the house, they might could help. I don't know.
Okay. The other one, just in case there's somebody that's listening that knows the answer, the other one that I'm sort of interested in, just some explanation on why it's included, would be the fifth one, lines 104 to 106. It has that would violate the constitutional rights of third parties. Do you have any idea what potential third parties those might be? And the reason I ask is because it's related to a constitutional rights violation, so I want to make sure I understand that.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm thinking that, obviously since hedge funds are, and I could be totally wrong, they do invest other people's money.
Yeah.
So, say for instance, if the hedge fund was obviously some parts of it was, you have somebody that controls the money and invests it, and then you have a third party obviously that's putting it in. That could be the only thing that I can think of. There again, I could probably get those answers for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other questions, so this time we'll move on to those that want to speak on the bill. Betsy Ledford. Oh, there you go. Okay. I knew I didn't see her in here. I didn't think she was Betsy Ledford, but that's... All right. That mic's lit.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Betsy Bradfield with the Georgia Association of Realtors. Unfortunately, we are opposed to this bill as written, but I really appreciate the sponsor's hard work on this issue, and especially on this bill. I know how much work he's put in this, and we are in complete and total agreement that this is the large-scale corporate acquisition of single-family homes is a huge problem. I just think we disagree on the solution here. You all know how engaged our association has been in advocating for accessible housing across our state, and we have been working for years to find a solution on this issue, but I just don't believe that a cap is the right answer per se. I promise that if we had a solution to bring to you, I would have brought it to you by now. If there was something working in another state, I would have brought it to you by now. Placing a cap on homes purchased won't eliminate the problem, in my opinion, because these large companies have so much money and so many attorneys that it'll take them about a week to split up all their LLCs to get under the cap. And the way that Georgia's corporation law is written is it treats small mom and pop LLCs, small and pop landlords, exactly the same as these large corporations. So there's no differentiation in how they are treated. Therefore, they can just create another one. And currently, as written, an LLC can own an LLC, can own an LLC, can own an LLC. So until we sort of clarify that ownership structure, how are we to know who owns who? We are also engaged in the issue of tort reform. So unfortunately, we cannot support a bill that I think makes Georgia more litigious. And if these groups do, in fact, create more LLCs to get under that cap, then, many of these protectionist provisions in the bill that would allow for the private right of action, I fear that they wouldn't even be able to take effect because they would just find another loophole and get under the system. I definitely think we can continue to explore solutions to make it more burdensome for these institutional investors to acquire these properties and remove some of their incentive structure, and I'll happily work with anyone who's interested in doing that and take any questions, but thank you so much.
Okay. Vice Chair Reeves.
Ms. Bradfield, those issues you just mentioned would be revealed in discovery, right? If companies try to hide their ownership under this statute, that would get revealed in discovery, wouldn't it?
I am not an attorney. I'll put, like in Senate Judy, I put my money in my jar.
And in Georgia, they used to call it the Fraudulent Transfer Act. It's now called the Voidable Transfer Act. But, if a company, large or small, does a transfer of an asset to avoid the law, that's fraudulent. I mean, that's something that could be voidable, and the law can ameliorate that attempt to evade the law and to monopolize Georgia's single-family homes. Isn't that true?
And it is monopolized, to your point. It absolutely is a problem. I just fear that the way that we currently qualify the LLCs, that there's no clarity in which one. So how long would it take an attorney to sort through all of this and to do discovery and to require all of this information to prove which LLC owns which LLC? But I'm not disagreeing with you at all that it is a problem. It is a gigantic problem. It is just one that I don't know how to solve.
Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Betsy, for your testimony here today. I guess I'm attempting not to get spun around an axle, but I'm trying to understand kind of the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you said, I think in your testimony, that it's hard to understand who these shell companies are. Is that correct?
You mean the large institutional investors?
I think what you were saying was a LLC that owns homes could create another LLC and they have shell companies. Is that your contention?
Yeah, so as I understand it, I'm going to name drop like BlackRock. Like, you're not going to go out and go to Georgia corporations and find that BlackRock 1 owns 10 houses and BlackRock 2. They put them all under different LLCs. It's like 123 Main Street, Happy Neighborhoods in Lilburn. And so you go 14 LLCs up and find out that they're owned by a subsidiary of BlackRock. But it's going to be nearly impossible to find just BlackRock owns 15 properties.
So finding the information on these shell companies has been tough, I think you would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So now I have a House Bill 374, that will require these companies to provide information on who they are, but it's my understanding that the Georgia Realtor Association, which you represent, is also opposing that bill too. Is that correct?
We are opposed to House Bill 374, yes.
No more questions. Thank you.
All right. Floor Leader Hung.
Thank you, Chairman. And I don't know if this question goes to you or the author of the bill, but Representative McCollum had mentioned, or actually I think it was Representative Holcomb mentioned lines 73 through 75 as far as business enterprise obtains, owns, or possesses an interest in order to capture concerns and issues that you just addressed. Do you not believe that those lines are enough? And in addition, maybe we also include not only for which a business enterprise or shareholders of a business enterprise, because what you just said made me think, maybe there are multiple shareholders of businesses that separately go out and create separate LLCs that have nothing to do with a parent LLC, et cetera. And so maybe that's also a language that we can include. But if we include all of that, do you still think that it will not go towards your concern about having different companies and parent companies?
So I think yes, to your question. I think so. The way that the real estate investment trust operate, as far as I understand, is that they'll create a REIT, and then it'll be they'll own 5% of this property, 17% of this property, 25% of this property. Very rarely do they just own it outright, unless we're talking about some of these large invitation homes who do own the homes outright, and that's the corporate landlord. So I think the owns an interest in piece, I believe that was in the substitute language. I think the own the interest in, if you're all confident that it captures that, then I believe that I am confident. Again, I didn't go to law school. But yeah, our main concern is just making sure that the people who are actually the targets of this bill are the people who are captured, and to protect our mom and pop landlords who, this is their generational wealth. They own 1 to 4 houses in the neighborhood. We want to protect them and go after these big guys who were just destabilizing the market, like Representative McCollum said. Thank you.
Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the committee here, I was going to look at line 23 through 25 here, and I think this kind of addresses affiliate means any entity that directly, indirectly owns or controls, is owned or controlled by, or is under any other common ownership or control with a business enterprise. I think that pretty well covers these folks who have some type of common ownership.
All right, I see no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Let's see, Ann McKillop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine, while he removed the multifamily, there's still the concern with communities of condos and townhomes. And what happens is you can have one person, not even a company, own 90% of a condo building, or a townhome community that has 10 or 12 units. And those are single-family homes, and you could have somebody own the majority, but not the whole community. And I think we need to see something in there that addresses that. That we could have it. I live in the high-rise where I serve on this board, and we see this where people try to come in and buy. We have active investors that we've restricted from buying in our house because we only allow 25% rentals, which many places also have. One of our owners of several units is a group from the Far East. We also have one unit owned by a childhood friend of Putin's, and that money is in trust. We can't touch it. We can't even pay our HOA dues out of that because it's all frozen because it's in Russia. She lives in Russia and we can't get to the money. Which is, when they told us that, I was like, you can't make this up. But so I would like to see something to do with multifamily may not be the right word because that would include apartments, and that's a different scenario. Whereas when you say single family, people think of a home, individual home, whereas a single family residence could be in a high-rise or in a townhome community.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So on line 5, it says single-family residence means a parcel of real property that has upon it a detached residential structure that contains between 1 and 3 individual dwelling units, each of which is designated for the exclusive use and occupied by one family. Or townhouses. Townhouses means any individual residential dwelling unit within a large structure that contains 2 or more attached residence dwelling units constructed of a row where each residential dwelling unit is designed exclusively for use of occupation by one family, is located in individual lot or parcel, shares at least one common wall with the adjacent unit. So obviously that's a very good description of those.
Of the townhome, yes.
Well, and a single family home.
Okay.
Yeah, it says detached residential structure that contains between 1 or 3, well, let's see, I'm sorry, go back. Single family residence means a parcel of real property that has upon it a detached residential structure that contains between 1 and 3 individual dwelling units. So it being detached would not be a condo.
Right.
And then obviously townhomes obviously has a description as well.
Right. You
So,
do seem
yeah.
to. I had not read the final.
No, that's fine. Understandable. Thank you.
But I would like to see something in there about condominiums because that is getting to be a real problem. There's a condo on Peachtree between Buckhead and Midtown. I'm not sure where the line is, and it is 90% owned by outside investors.
Okay. All right. I don't see any questions for you. Thank you, ma'am.
Got to get those.
All right. Hayden Stanley? You wave? Okay. Thank you, sir. And Sam Olens? Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Go ahead.
I represent the National Home Rental Council. It's an organization of companies that have been classified almost as contrary to the American way during this hearing, that principally build subdivisions, not buy houses, but build subdivisions. And without those subdivisions, we would have many people in our region without adequate housing. And with 7% interest rates, there are many people of all ages that are striving to live in a house that could not if it was not a rental house, even though during this hearing, I almost feel like it's a crime to build rental housing. Affordable housing requires adequate supply, and demand is very high. The Georgia Multiple Listing Service estimates that our metro area is short 35,000 to 40,000 houses. So once again, if you tell these companies, don't buy the land, don't build houses, and people are still coming to Georgia, you understand what happens. Home ownership is up in the largest Georgia counties over the past 5 years, not less, it's up. And some of the companies I represent are based in Georgia, reside in Georgia, along with these other companies that I keep hearing are evil. Under this bill, without any evidence of harm, any deception, any wrong activity, they would be subject to that $15,000 penalty. Representative Holcomb, there are so many parts of this bill that are constitutionally infirm. You mentioned at least 5 of them during your comments. It is inconsistent to say there's no evidence of harm, but we're going to charge $15,000. That's not what I think of as good law in our state. Arbitrary restraints are possibly unconstitutional in taking. Representative Holcomb, in particular, you're an attorney, you asked legal questions. I got to assume that the Georgia Constitutional Article 3, Section 6, Paragraph 2 is a problem. I got to assume that Title 22 is a problem, 22-1-5 a taking. I have no idea how what's listed in this bill is not contrary to Georgia statutory law, Georgia constitutional law, and oh, by the way, I respectfully disagree with the sponsor on his determination on the dormant commerce clause. I think that's a huge problem also. I'm not here to say there isn't a problem. I'm not here to say we shouldn't work to solve it. I'm here to say this bill is going to do one thing. It's going to kick a lot of innocent people out of their houses. It's going to cause a lot of companies to no longer build houses for rent. And affordability is going to be less affordable rather than more affordable. I still haven't heard the first argument of how this frankly makes it easier for people to have adequate housing. Arbitrary restrictions, such as the number 2,000, are overtly constitutionally and statutorily difficult. Bill 555 will evict thousands of Georgia residents with no alternative housing. While I appreciate the delay from 2026 to 2029, who's buying these properties? Or do we now live in a country or a state where we encourage folks to have to sell below value because a bill has been filed? If it infringes on private property rights, and it already reduces the low supply of housing, we're absolutely not hurting the middle class that I've heard so much about. Representative Mary Margaret Oliver's $3.99 is a good first step, and we supported that bill. But this bill is a bad step for everyone in Georgia, and I'm frankly taken back by how companies that follow the law are listed in many of our mutual funds, many of our retirement funds, are now in this bill just determined to be evil corporate citizens. And I know that I'm swimming uphill, but I also know that I'm speaking for the vast majority of free market people in saying this bill is a terrible bill, even though I agree with the sponsor that we need to find solutions. Thank you very much.
Okay, you have a couple of questions.
I'm shocked.
Representative Momsahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much. First time I've met you here in the Judiciary Committee, so I want to say thank you for your service to our state.
Thank you, sir.
And I know you've served in many capacities, and thank you, for those as well. One of the comments you had made was, you have young folks, and I think this is true. I truly do. Young folks that are striving to rent a house that is, they should not be a crime. I think you kind of relate to that. What do you think, and what do you think about your members who are building these homes for rent, who are then subsequently not renting these homes? Is that not also creating some rub or issue of why we're having to be here in the first place?
Representative Monahan, the problem is comments are being made without any research to back it. Why a capitalist would build something and not expect a return on that investment is beyond me. And you're being asked to pass a bill with no research to back up the vast majority of the statistics that were referenced earlier. I'll give you one statistic that I'm really comfortable with. 0.4% of our single-family housing is owned by landlords who rent those structures. 0.4%. Now, I'm not going to deny with you that some jurisdictions like Paulding County have a higher figure than the national average. I'm here to retain credibility, not to lose credibility. But to say that the world's going to hell in a handbag due to build-to-rent homes, candidly, it's not consistent with the facts. And I would love to be part of a process where we work with the Georgia State University, where we work with other institutions of higher learning, and strive to get the facts.
Further question, Mr. Chairman. And I understand where you're coming from. Certainly do. I would contend that renting a home is not the only way to derive value for investors. And I would say that merely owning the home and the property and using the home as a cash sink in and of itself and as an investment vehicle, just as property values rise in and of itself, could be. Further, I would ask your association to make it clear, with I think the members on this panel here in this committee and the members of the General Assembly, as to foreign ownership structures, investors, especially those who may or may not derive from foreign adversarial countries. In 2023, $13.1 billion came in to the United States, with Georgia being the number 8 target amongst those foreign adversarial country investors. Now, certainly not every dollar came from a government-owned entity, but I think that given the discussion here on this bill and seeing the money come in, there has to be a level of clarity as to who these investors are, especially when it comes to institutional investors investing big dollars in what seems to be very targeted districts like House District 17 in Paulding County. That would be something I would submit to you as we go through these things, and you can see kind of the posture of folks on this committee. A lot of folks have just had enough, but thank you for your time here.
Representative, I'm all for increased transparency in that regard, but I would suggest to you that at a 7% interest rate, it is approximately 40% cheaper for that family to rent a home than to buy a home. And this discussion largely today doesn't deal with the reality on the ground, that for many of these families, they'd love to purchase a home, but they simply can't afford it. And what this bill is telling them, well, you're not going to rent the home, you're not going to be in the home. But by the way, I'm not sure where they're moving when we have thousands of evictions follow this legislation. And I totally 100% agree with you, sir, about transparency. And I'm not aware of a single person within the National Rental Housing Council that relates to those foreign governments. But I understand your concern, and I appreciate your concern.
Okay. Vice Chair Reeves?
Mr. Owens, thank you for coming. You mentioned capitalism. Isn't it true that monopolies jeopardize capitalism more than anything else almost?
There's no evidence of a monopoly here.
I thought that's something that we could, but evidence, I mean, Representative Oliver presented some pretty compelling evidence today. Representative McCollum gave the statistics about we got now hundreds of thousands of homes that have been purchased in recent years, and you know, I mean, I'll move.
Representative Reeves, where is the evidence? A legislator saying it or me saying it is not evidence. Research is evidence.
I think that people across Atlanta have seen the companies come to their neighborhoods. It's happening in large numbers. We'd be in denial to say it's not happening in large numbers. And I think that
it's
the testimony today has been accurate on that.
No, I disagree. I think
Do you disagree with the fact that 300 or 400 homes have been purchased by large-scale owners of real estate in the past decade in Georgia?
Candidly, I don't have the data in front of me.
Okay.
I'm not there to say you're right or you're wrong, but I think it's important to actually seek data.
Okay. And then if the numbers that are in the bill presently of 2,000 homes, a maximum of 2,000 homes, and having 4 years to sell them off to get down to that 2,000 home threshold, if those numbers are objectionable, what numbers would be acceptable?
So I'm also thinking about the comment that was made about courthouse steps. It is darn right scary for me to think there's legislation that's encouraging capital to be forced to put their property on a courthouse step with no evidence of owing taxes, of doing a single thing wrong, but being subject to a $15,000 statutory penalty. Your question's a great question, Representative Reeves, but that's once again a function of research and study for what the number should be. For me to tell you it should be 5,000 or 10,000 on the day where you're getting ready for crossover, I would suggest to you that these discussions should have been happening over the prior months.
I mean, do y'all want to have a study committee on this?
Sir, I'd be happy to have a committee that literally is based on research with the goal to sit there and protect Georgians. Everyone here wants to protect Georgians. But this bill, in my humble opinion, does not, despite I certainly concur that the sponsor wants to do the right thing.
For Georgians.
For Georgians, right.
Not for outside aid.
For Georgians, I'm a Georgian. But there needs to be research and there needs to be a process. And, you know, candidly, no one went up to me in the last year and said, let's schedule meetings, let's talk about this problem, let's discuss it. I would have been happy to have set up those meetings. But my knowledge of, remember, this is 555. It's not House Bill 20. It's House Bill 555. I've known about this bill maybe 10 days.
Okay. And this bill maybe, but let me just say the issue of individual home ownership. There are many in Georgia who feel that individual home ownership has been taken out of reach by large-scale purchasers of homes who are taking those homes off the market. And so I think it is a problem. I don't think we've thrown any rhetoric in there saying they're evil, but I think we're saying it is out of whack and it does need some action. And so we're asking for solutions. That's what this bill is doing.
Is housing affordability a huge problem? Yeah, absolutely. But to put it on 0.4% of the homes that are for rent in our country seems a real stretch to me.
In my area, the homes that are being rented out, you could purchase them at a much more affordable level if they were available for individual purchasers. But the large-scale purchasers are coming in, paying cash at a premium. They are taking those homes off the market before the average first-time home buyer, working people, senior citizens have an opportunity to even go see their lender to get a loan to buy it. That's the problem that we're trying to solve, and we're doing our best. And we're glad to work with the big folks in doing it. But what this bill is saying is 2,000's enough. 2,000's enough. You got 4 years at a record high of home values to sell them off to get down to that level of 2,000. give the American dream back to individual homeowners in Georgia. That's what this bill is trying to do.
And all I'm saying is it's an arbitrary number, which is a taking.
What's the better number? And the bill says if it's a taking, that's severed. So we're asking you, what is the right number? 2,500, 3,000? We're asking that.
I don't think that's a proper question to be asking when no one's yet scheduled a meeting with my client to discuss the issue.
I mean, if you sell off 1,000 homes at $500,000 each, that's a lot of money. That's not a taking. That's a windfall. That's a benefit.
No, I would totally disagrry with you. If you're asked to do fire sales, that's not a windfall.
4 years is an adequate marketing period at a record high. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a quick comment, if I may.
Very quick. I got more lights going here.
He had said we don't have no data. I referenced Government Office of Accountability, Urban Institute, and GSU Professor of Law. I think that they've researched this. It's not just arbitrary data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Owens, thank you for being here. In the conversation of capitalism and free markets, can we at least agree that when we're looking at a free market system, that reducing supply increases demand and drives up cost?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. But the vast majority of the folks I represent don't buy existing properties. They build new subdivisions.
What about the ones who are doing large-scale purchases? Would you agree that's a problem then, that would have a impact that increases cost?
It may, but once again, we're saying there's a huge problem, and we have no idea what percentage of the marketplace that relates to.
A second question, line of question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Since we're debating constitutionality, our state has an antitrust statute, an open and fair competition statute. Now, right now, it largely just revolves around state contracts. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. And have you ever had to defend or prosecute underneath that statute?
No, sir.
Would you think that we would be assured in the constitutionality if we were to move away from the model Representative McCollum has and instead try to modify our state's antitrust statute to move into this? It would be a criminal penalty versus a civil, so that's why I'm trying to see the constitutionality of both.
I think if one were able to make the adequate evidentiary record, then that would be a proper subject of study.
Thank you.
Representative Oliver.
I just had to jump back in. The author of the bill cited this research that I've been developing. It's clearly we have the Urban Institute at Georgia Tech and the geography and the economic development. I just handed to Representative Reeves all the research. It's already been done for us at our taxpayer money. They've already done it. And it's good research, and I don't think we're making up facts here. The map I showed today on the wall was very highly researched. As the districts across Georgia have more than 50% single-family owned by the out-of-state investors.
I'd certainly appreciate you sharing that information with me.
We'll get a copy made.
All right. I see no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Apley, you want to join us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you to the author for bringing this bill. I'm here on behalf of House ATL, Enterprise Community Partners, 9 to 5 Georgia, and Presbyterians for a Better Georgia. Those groups and I, on their behalf, have been advocating for years to increase access to affordable housing, to support home ownership, and to provide fair protections for tenants. We strongly support this legislation. I haven't seen the sub, but we understand from the author that a multifamily has been removed because the metrics weren't a good fit. Last week, in the Banks and Banking Committee, Commissioner Nunn pointed out that Georgia has the lowest rate of home ownership of any state in the Southeast. In the Government Affairs Committee last week, I brought forth experts from Georgia Tech, Professor Alora Raymond and Professor Brian Ahn, and Professor Taylor Shelton from Georgia State that the author has referred to. And you have in your folders the materials from Dr. Shelton that reflect his research over many years on this issue. You have in your folders not only the maps that Representative Oliver shared on the House floor today from Dr. Shelton, but also a chart reflecting the number of single-family rentals owned by institutional investors broken down by county, and then a second document broken down by your House districts. And you can see, I think numbers were shared earlier about Gwinnett County. You'll see on the county document that Gwinnett County reflects 11,958 as the total number of single-family rentals owned by institutional investors. And Dr. Shelton shares as a footnote to that chart that this was accurate as of January 2024 and reflects properties owned by 21 known institutional single-family residential investors. In addition, Dr. Ahn, when he testified to the Government Affairs Committee last week, identified that the impacts of these massive ownerships are to weaken home ownership, and he cites to his published research on this subject. It raises housing prices, making it harder to buy a home, and cites the research of others. He noted that that they tend to appeal repeatedly to reduce property tax bills 18 times more than owner-occupiers, that the increase in code violations is 4 to 5 times more than individual landlords, that the increase in crime rates for these owners is 2 to 9% higher, and that it decreases building permit activities. In addition, there's research showing that they are more aggressive as landlords, tending to increase the rent more aggressively than smaller landlords, that they're more likely to evict, more likely to engage in serial evictions, and less likely to provide adequate repair and security on those properties. All of that is based on published research that I'm happy to share with the committee. I thank the author for bringing the bill and appreciate your consideration.
All right. I see no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's all the speakers we have on this bill. Who's 18?
Question for the author.
Oh, Floor Leader Hong.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm sorry, I walked in a little late, so I may have missed this conversation, but when it comes to who may be able to bring an action for violation of this code section, I see that there is any claimant, and then in a different section, I see that the Attorney General or a DA may be able to bring it. Just curious, is based on the intent of what we're trying to get at with this bill, why having an individual bring a suit and being able to get damages of $15,000 and actual damages, etc. What's the purpose of an individual bringing suit versus an attorney general or DA bringing suit?
I think that overall that the private attorney general is going to be the best avenue, because they obviously are going to represent someone.
Private attorney general, is that what you said?
Yes, this is a private attorney general provision that we have in the state. So essentially, that would be the private attorney general, which would be a trial lawyer or another attorney, and they would bring a suit. And I think it would have more teeth into it than attorney general just all of a sudden decided they're going to prosecute these cases. And at the end of the day, these outside entities, the only thing they think about is the bottom line. So if they obviously are going to lose money, they're going to think twice about having more than 2,000 houses. But really, if they do the right thing and we pass this legislation, we won't have any of this litigation. Just sell down your houses. You have 4 years to do it to 2,000. Everything will be fine. So the only reason we're going to have this is if we have bad actors not selling off the houses. So that's
And I like the bill, and I hope that anything that we pass, people do what they're supposed to do,
Right.
but unfortunately
Right.
they don't. But thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Reeves.
Is that private attorney general landscape, is that similar like a whistleblower or a key tam statute, like with healthcare fraud and things like that that are out there?
I'll take the vice chairman's advice on that one, but thank you.
Again,
Yes.
he's not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I see. What's the will of the committee?
Motion to pass. Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have 4 brief amendments.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. My first amendment would be on line 30, where it says claimant means A. I would strike A and put an aggrieved. So claimant means an aggrieved person who, and following. That responds to the Chairman Smith suggestion about tightening up standing.
All right. The words in there is 2 words, right? And aggrieved.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
got it.
Mr. Chairman.
All
The second amendment is after line 40, after subsection 5B, where it says townhouse, put or, and then add a subsection C, condominium. I was persuaded by the input from one of our witnesses, there are some differences between townhouses and condominiums, so I would add, after line 40, add a subsection C for condominium.
All right. Okay, and move the or, right?
Correct, and renumber the or.
Okay.
These amendments one by one.
Or I'll put them out there and then have a vote, however the chair and committee wants to do.
I may do them one at a time so that we're all clear on it. But
On line 36, I'm persuaded by Mr. Olin's argument that we could be hindering new neighborhoods and new housing, and so I offer on line 36, where it says real property that, I would add as of the effective date. So it would read single-family residence means a parcel of real property that, as of the effective date, would be added, has upon it a detached single-family structure, townhouse, or condo. That way, what this would do is it would say we are going to free up the existing 1.5 million or 2 million homes in Georgia to be individually owned again, up to a maximum of 2,000 homes per owner. So that's amendment number 3.
Okay.
And then the fourth and final amendment on page 5 on line 103, I move to add comma res judicata, comma or collateral estoppel to that list. I think Representative Holcomb was right. If we're going to have a list on there, let's go ahead and add to it. I think what this section was acknowledging is there'd be abundant defenses by the defendant. So let's add res judicata and collateral estoppel. If they've litigated this once before, they don't have to litigate it again. And I like that part on line 105, that the constitutional rights are acknowledged. So if this is a taking, it's a taking. But I've done the math, 1,000 homes at $500,000, that's $500 million. If someone says that's a taking, I think I've got some folks who want to have a taking. So those are my 4 amendments.
Okay. Representative Kelly?
Just a question on a couple of the amendments. I don't know how you want to, what parts you want me to get in to ask those. I mean, I'll second his amendments and then move them towards discussion, or however you want to do those. But
I think we need to, but we did motion the bill, so we're at that posture then.
okay.
So,
I guess first I would ask, what would you consider an aggrieved person, just versus what would be the grievance that a person would have against one of these?
I know in real estate law that is a standard for some claims. There's some law,
and I don't do a ton of that, so that's where I was asking. So that meets mine. And then just for just a
add on to maybe for your consideration on your amendment about the condominium, I would just ask for it to be condominium as defined in OCGA 44-371, the Condominium Act.
Let's add that to the second amendment I mentioned. I think that sounds good. So, a condominium as defined in code section
44-371.
44-371.
Which amendment is this going?
The second amendment.
Oh, okay.
On line, after line 40.
All right. I'll call on you to get that here in just a minute. 44 what? 71. Okay. All right. This it's lit up quite a bit here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question about the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Hang on. There we go.
The third amendment, so it's my perception that there is a finite amount of land for development out there. And so my question is, would the effective date, I'll just call it, that you had in your third amendment actually defeat one of the purposes of the bill, which is to allow single-family homes available for purchase in the future? Can you maybe just talk to me more about that?
As we were studying the Gwinnett County property tax for homeowners, we learned that there's, despite the fact there have been more homes built and more people move in, there are fewer homes now that are owner-occupied. Thousands more homes that were owner-occupied than just 2019. And so what this would do, those 400,000 homes Representative McCollum mentioned, and whether it's 300,000 or 400,000 homes, it's a large number. Let's diversify that large number. And I mean, Mr. Olin said he has, a member who wants to build more build-to-rent neighborhoods. If that's what they want to do with some future housing, they'd be able to do it, subject to any changes in the law going forward. But the 1.5 million or 2 million homes that are presently there, let's end this consolidation of ownership of those existing single-family homes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would just ask the amendments be voted individually.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Who's got Chairman Smith?
Mr. Chairman, just in all candor to this committee, did a little quick research. Apparently the Fifth Circuit out towards Texas Way has approved of the language already in there about claimants, so the issues that I brought up before, I'll withdraw those.
Okay, thank you. And Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chair Reeves, I want to make sure on the res judicata and collateral estoppel that's what you intend, because line 94 and 95 say that the following shall not be a defense to an action. So that would be excluding them. Is that what you're intending?
Yeah. Strike that fourth amendment. I thought these were defenses.
Okay.
So yeah, ignorance of the law and things like that are not defenses. I wanted to make sure previous litigation, that's obviously going to be retained as a defense. So strike the Fourth Amendment.
Okay. Anyway, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Representative Reeves, I'm not suggesting that we do, because it may be somewhere else, but we have a definition for townhouse. Do we need a definition for condominium in your second amendment? Did you already do that?
I put one for condominium. We have the one for townhouse.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Reeves, I'm trying to follow the rationale here. I think Leader F. had some questions too, and it may be the same thing. Take me through the application of the change of the effective date, because I'm trying to understand what mechanics look like by adding this effective date to the definition in context of the rest of the bill, of the enabling legislation.
You know what? I'll let the Senate deal with that. I'll withdraw that Third Amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
If they want
to. All right. Well, we're down to 2 now. Do we have any other amendments? Okay.
Did you say amendments, Chair?
I'm sorry? Yes, you have another amendment?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead. we can, now, go.
Thank you. And I had discussed this earlier, but on line 74, after enterprise, insert or shareholders of a business enterprise. That's the amendment.
Second.
Holders of a business enterprise?
Or shareholders of a business enterprise.
All right. Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to amend line 27 to include the word issuer after trust. And an issuer is a defined term in the code OCGA 10-5-2, and it's an entity that issues or proposes to issue a security. So it would cover that as well.
Do we need to include the cite to the code section to clarify? Unless, I don't know if it's anywhere else in the code. So
We don't for any of the others. I don't know if Legislative Council is here and can help us with that. I think if we did for any of the others and this doesn't have a definition section, we're probably better off just leaving it.
Leaving it as issuer. Okay. All right. That's fine with me. All right. Any more? Back up to 4. All right. We'll go. Amendment number 1 is line 30. Strike the word a and insert an aggrieved. All those in favor of that say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we got that on. Number 2 is line 40. Line 39 we strike or, and on 40 we insert or, and after that the letter C. Condominium as defined in OCGA section 44-371. Did I get that right?
44-371.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we got number 2 in. Let's see, which one was number 4? Shareholders. Okay. Number 3. Amendment number 3 is on line 74. After the word enterprise, insert for shareholders of a business enterprise.
Or shareholders. Or shareholders. Or.
That's what I said. What'd y'all think I said?
Or.
They don't understand northern accents.
Okay. Oh, well, maybe I did say 4, so what or. Gotcha. Or. I guess that's my bad hearing. All right. Or shareholders of a business enterprise. That does make better sense. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're on with that. And oh. Thank you. Back to line 27. After the word trust, insert insurer or issuer, excuse me. Can't read. All right. Any discussion on that one? Anything additional? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Now I think that's all the 4 amendments. Any other amendments? Now to the main bill. All those in favor of the bill say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Got 1. All right. The bill passes. All right. Thank you, Representative McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Okay. We're out of time. Out of time. Come back tomorrow. Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm at a hard break here. I've got another committee coming in to meet, and I actually have a bill in front of that committee. So we need to vacate this committee. So we are adjourned at this time. Come back at 8 o'clock in the morning.